Now, Rose Conway-Walsh, you're on the hustings.
Yes.
Yeah, you're doing Westport today, is it?
We're doing Westport today, yeah, and we have 2 weeks left to go, 14 days, 14 tough days ahead, but I'm really enjoying it, and it's all going well, and obviously I'd like to thank all the people for their support and their kindness on the doors that we call to throughout the county. And you meet hugely interesting people. But we're meeting a lot of people out there who have a lot of very serious issues. Now, it's no surprise to me because I've worked in community development for years and been a county councillor in the West Mayo area. The main issues that I'm coming across is obviously jobs. Everybody, and the number of people between 20 and 60 that have said to me, all I want is a job. All I want is a job. And those people deserve to have jobs. And the other big issue is health. People who are waiting for appointments, waiting for diagnostic scans, and people who are waiting for treatment. And then people's experience of having access to health service and trying to get into Mayo General Hospital and trying to get beds. And that's why it's really obvious to me that the things that have been done in the past number of years, for quite a lot of years now, in the number of beds that have been cut from the system need to be put back in. And I suppose that's what I'm working towards, those issues with Sinn Féin's New Deal for the West, in putting in place those things. Because at the end of the day, healthcare is a human right. It's a right, no matter where you live or how little money you have, people should have access to diagnostic treatments, to diagnostics and to treatment for whatever condition they have.
And you're running for Sinn Fein.
I'm the sole Sinn Féin candidate in Mayo, yes.
And how did you pick Sinn Fein?
Well, that's a big question. It'll probably take me a bit longer than this, but
make it short.
The main thing was, I suppose there was two things in my life. And firstly, as a young teenager, the 1981 hunger strike, I think, had a profound effect on me as a person, when all those people were dying. And I suppose I've always had an innate sense of guilt, in a sense that nobody from the south seemed to be doing anything to stop all that was happening in the north. So that was a big issue for me. But it wasn't a foregone conclusion that I would join Sinn Féin politically, and I never intended to be a representative in politics. But when I came back from England in 1998 and I started to work in community development, I worked with South West Mayo Development here in West Mayo, and I looked to see where the people I was working with on the ground, these were people who were starting up their own businesses and people who were struggling with different things, where these decisions were being made that affected their lives. And that brought me to a meeting of Mayo County Council. Now, the first thing that struck me there was that the lack of women. There was 3 women out of 31 councillors. So that was kind of a stark reminder of that. But I looked at the other parties as well. But what I found with Sinn Féin was that Sinn Féin had a different way of working. They were working with people. They were working to build the capacity in people and to empower people rather than working for people. Because there's one thing I despise about politics and the political system in Ireland, and that is the dependency culture that's built up. So I'll do you a favour, and therefore I own you and I own your vote thereafter. A republic should not operate like that. When you live in a republic, you have inherent rights. You have rights as a human being and as a citizen of that republic. And that is what I fight for. And I suppose that is why I joined Sinn Féin, because they were the party that were most aligned with my views. And I wanted as well, and I'll be all honest with you, I've been very privileged in the last 16 years to be able to work towards peace, because peace is hugely important for me, and I have been able to do that as part of the Earth Core in Sinn Féin and the different positions and tasks that I've had within the party.
Well, are Sinn Féin a party of the left?
Sinn Féin are certainly a party of the left, but they're a party of the people and a party, I think, that can form a new republic on the centenary of 1916.
Well, do the left tend to make more dependency than the right?
Oh no, I wouldn't think so, because I think in the left, but I suppose you have a broad left, and we've signed up to the right to change, and we play a part in that, and so there would be, and what we would encourage is like an alignment of the left, if you like. So no, I don't. They certainly don't. Left-wing politics wouldn't build up a dependency culture in people. It is about the empowerment of people, but it's about giving people back their rights as well, and them recognising that they have a right to water, they have a right to a job, and they have a right to healthcare.
But some people would say that workers are not rewarded enough for their work.
Absolutely, and I think this is the real serious
thing.
Compared
to those who don't work.
Yes, but
the gap isn't wide enough.
the gap isn't wide enough in that sense, but what I would say is there's a whole cohort of people across this county and across this country, and they are the working poor. They are people who are on very low wages, and in one sense this recession has been used as an excuse to keep wages down, and the erosion of workers' rights really worries me, because I think that people who go out and do a decent day's work should get a decent day's wage for it. So they should be able to pay their bills at the end of the month. It's like we have Gardaí now, and like something like the new Gardaí and the new teachers, something like €350 a week. They can never afford a home on that wage, or they can never afford to pay their bills. So the struggling of the working poor really, really concerns me in that sense.
But it's all down to money, isn't it?
It's all down to money, it's
And
all down to resources.
And we owe 200 billion.
We owe 200 billion, but we are a very, very rich country. We are rich in our natural resources, our oil and gas and the deals that have been done there and been given away, our fishing rights, we have our seaweed here along the west coast. There's a whole lot of natural resources that we can use for the benefit of the citizens of this country. And we're a very wealthy country. You only have to look at the wealth that has been generated during the recession and who it has been generated for. The top 200 people in this country have benefited hugely. Their wealth has increased by billions. I think it's something like 12 billion or something that has increased by. And also the other thing we have to be careful of is the sell-off of businesses, the sell-off of sometimes thriving businesses into NAMA and all that, where people didn't get a chance. They've been sold off. And who is going to end up owning Ireland at the end of all this? So there's a lot of wealth here. It's about the redistribution of wealth, and it's about redistributing that to the most vulnerable people in our country and indeed in our county here in Mayo.
But was our wealth not artificial in that most of the money that we were spending was borrowed from Europe and other places? Yeah.
Yes, indeed, Oliver. But it was, but the thing is that when we look at the crisis and we look economically what happened in terms of the bank, we are looking at about 200 individuals again. The key 29 individuals that, for instance, had the loans from Anglo-Irish Bank, they were people who were very, very close to government and close to the banking system and the developers. So they were all living on borrowed money. They were living on money. They were the people who caused the crisis. And I really resented the fact that when Enda Kenny said, well, we all partied, and that seemed to be the line that was given out. We didn't all party. I can speak for myself. I can speak for my own family. We had gone through the recession in England when I had immigrated there. But it was down to the cronyism, and I have no hesitation in saying this, in the cronyism and the corruption that has gone on in this country that has robbed the people. The debt then that was nationalised and the debt that was put on the backs of people and on the backs of citizens in this county and this country, they were made to pay. They're made to pay through water charges, they're made to pay through property taxes, and they're made to pay through the lack of resources for the county now. So we see, for instance, here in Mayo, there's been over 100 million cut from the local and regional roads budget. So it's all of those things that have been robbed to pay for the debt of private bondholders and private bankers. And that is wrong in any country.
And how do Sinn Fein intend to deal with it?
Well, we would deal with it in terms of standing up to people, and we have said that in terms of Europe and in standing up for people's rights there, and on making the people, on dealing with the cronyism and corruption. And what you need to do there is you need to separate the banking system from government in a sense, but from the developers and all that, and not allowing that to happen. So I would look forward to Sinn Féin going into government, being able to examine some of these files. I mean, some of the results of the tribunals, if you like, the recommendations in them have never been implemented. And in terms of having a fair taxation as well, because I really, really am disturbed around what's happening in the way that small businesses are treated as opposed to multinationals. We see multinationals getting away without paying, in some cases, no tax at all, and in other cases, very little tax. Then you have the business down the road who has to pay their full rate of tax, and revenue treat those people very differently. That's why we need a fair taxation system, so that everybody pays what they are supposed to pay. But if you look as well in terms of rates for small businesses, and you see in the north we have done, say for instance, we put a levy on the multinational supermarkets and retailers so that we can reduce the rates for smaller businesses. And of course, they should be the rates should be done on profitability anyway, rather than on square footage. I mean, it's a crazy system that's set up. So it's in all of those things about generating an economy and a society, and rewarding business people, because we have wonderful business people and wonderful entrepreneurs in this county and in this country, and we need to reward them, not tax the hilt out of them by the very sense of. And I often hear it say, well, if we tax the multinationals or the wealthier people in society, then they're going to move. But by saying that very statement, it says that, well, we tax the hilt out of everybody else because they're sitting ducks. So whether that be a small business, a family business, they cannot move or whatever. So there really needs to be fairness brought in there. And I do think, and I honestly do think, sis, that Sinn Fein have a different way of working, and that we can address those issues so that there is a fairer distribution of the wealth in this country, and that everybody gets a fair chance to grow, a fair chance to develop, a fair chance to create employment.
Well, the multinationals have brought anything to the country? Do you think they've brought a few jobs or skills or anything like that?
They certainly do, and that's not true. And there are very good multinational companies who pay, who pay their fair share of taxes and all that. I'm talking about the gold-plated ones and the transactions that are done in that sense. There's some very good multinationals, and they are very welcome to be here. And we appreciate that. I think it's something like 8% of people who are employed by multinationals. They're very welcome, and those jobs are very welcome, and I hope that they continue to develop and come to this country. But we do want them to pay fair tax, so that it creates, even in terms of competitiveness, how can a small bookstore compete with Amazon when Amazon aren't paying any tax? And how can the coffee shop down the road compete with somebody, a multinational coffee shop who mightn't be paying any tax either? It's about fairness, and it's about creating a level playing field for people.
Is this kind of business model inevitable? Internet and...
It is, I would say, and that's why we would say as well within Sinn Fein that there's a whole opportunity to develop e-commerce in the West. It's an interesting question, because I do think that businesses need to be encouraged and need to be facilitated, and indeed need to be funded to capture that market as well. There is a share for small businesses to reach out, and I think there's great potential here in the West to do that. But I do think that businesses do need to move that way in terms of technology. But of course, then we look at the situation that we don't have broadband, and that's why Sinn Fein say that we would have a fibre going into people's homes and a minimum speed of 100 megabytes per second, because there are thousands of jobs being lost in Mayo and in other counties because people don't have broadband. I know people myself who've moved back from England, and they've huge skills. They can set up their own business and maybe have been working for a multinational company. They could work with, they can live in Belmullet, they can live in Westport or any part of Mayo and do their job on a world stage if they have the broadband. So it's disgraceful to think that we're in this day and age and we don't have a proper broadband, and people can't set up a business and can't make an investment without having that very, very basic infrastructure there.
And finally, what's your vision for Mayo for the next 5 years? What would you like to see happen?
I would like there to be a proper health system, firstly. I would like the waiting list to be reduced. I would like people in Mayo to get health care when they need it, not based on how much money they have or where they happen to live within the county or within the country. So that is the first thing I want to try and tackle as well. I also want to support the farming community and farmers who are struggling. I mean, we see exports and farmers, the export values have gone up by 20%, while the farm incomes have been reduced by over 10%. So we can have I want to see the natural resources used as well. We can have a whole vibrant economy here in Mayo if we do things right, and if we make some changes and we provide the basic infrastructure that people need in order to thrive, for their businesses to thrive and have jobs created within the county. So we can do very, very different things here. This is an opportunity to change the landscape of politics in Mayo for good and forever. And I hope that the people in Mayo will give me an opportunity to do that.
Thank you.